I'll get straight to the point. My middle son is a senior in college, and for the most part, he's a good kid. Right now, though, I'm a little frustrated with him. He just asked me for money to go on a spring break trip to Hawaii with his friends, which caught me off guard. Don't get me wrong, he's a good kid, and I want him to enjoy himself. Something about the way he asked rubbed me the wrong way. His mother has been struggling with her mental health lately, and it would have meant a lot to her to have him around. But I guess he's more focused on partying on a beach with his frat brothers. I can't even blame him too much. I was the same way at his age, and I see a lot of myself in him. This whole situation actually got me reminiscing about my own college days and reminded me of something I haven't thought about in a long time, a story I'm about to share. Ironically, my son is the one who introduced me to this platform, so maybe he'll get a kick out of this if it gets read. I attended Wharton, class of '85, something I'm still incredibly proud of. It was, and still is, the most prestigious business school in the world, and I took that reputation seriously. I had my fun, but I also worked my tail off. It was a different time back then. A lot of my classmates were wild, asterisk Wolf of Wall Street, asterisk kind of wild, and I did my best to avoid getting swept up in that lifestyle. But during my junior year, I did something a little impulsive. I was dating a Puerto Rican girl named Maria Munoz, who I still remember fondly. Sometimes I wonder how different my life might have been if I'd taken things further with some of the girlfriends I had back then, Maria included. Instead of going home for spring break like I usually did, Maria convinced me to visit Puerto Rico with her to meet her extended family. It was my first time on the island, and I was eager to impress her, so I agreed without hesitation. That said, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't want to mess anything up, and Maria often joked about how open Puerto Rican families were, so I knew they already knew a lot about me. As it turned out, my anxiety was mostly unwarranted. I got along really well with everyone, and it seemed like they genuinely liked me. Most of the trip was spent meeting her relatives, but we did have some time for ourselves. It was spring break after all. One of those outings was a hike through El Yunque, which, fun fact, is the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. National Forest System. Neither of us had a car, so Maria's mother drove us and dropped us off at one of the most popular trailheads. We were both a little rebellious, so we took full advantage of the fact that neither of us had to drive. The plan was to hike, enjoy the scenery, and sneak in a little rum and weed. Everything seemed perfect until we realized there was a problem. The trail we were most excited about was closed. I don't remember why, maybe flooding or maintenance, but Maria was really upset. I tried to calm her down, suggesting we hike one of the many other trails, but she wasn't having it. She insisted that the trail we'd planned on was the best one and that the others didn't even come close. I couldn't understand how one trail could be so much better than the others, but she was adamant. I'd learned by then not to argue with her over things like this, so I asked her what she wanted to do instead. Her response? Let's just hike the closed trail anyway. Like I said, we were both a little rebellious, so when she proposed the idea, I was on board. We'd come all this way, and some rule wasn't going to stop us. She gave me a look, and that was all it took. We made sure no one was around, slipped past the barriers, and started up the trail laughing like idiots. At first, it was exactly what we wanted, better, even. It felt like we had the whole forest to ourselves, which was incredible given how popular the trail usually was. Imagine visiting a world-famous natural site and being the only ones there. That kind of exclusivity is rare. We hiked for a while, passing little waterfalls and admiring the beauty of the forest. And yes, we were drinking, not excessively, but enough to feel a good buzz. It was a lot of fun, honestly. But then, out of nowhere, Maria screamed and jumped back, almost knocking me over. That instantly put me on high alert, even though I didn't know what had scared her. I looked around frantically until I saw it. A little further down the path was what looked like a freshly decapitated mongoose. Let me repeat that, a mongoose. A big one too, and its head looked like it had been cleanly sliced off. I told Maria to stay where she was and approached the carcass, hoping it was maybe a stuffed animal or something. It wasn't. I inspected it without getting too close and confirmed what I'd initially thought. Its head had been cleanly cut off. The cut was too precise for it to have been anything other than a knife wound, which was downright disturbing. The worst part was that the body hadn't started smelling yet, meaning it probably hadn't been there for very long. Maria was shaking, and I was mostly in shock. I tried to reassure her, saying something dumb like, "Crime in a national forest is unlikely," even though I couldn't explain it myself. I put my arm around her and ushered her past the body, trying to block it from her line of sight. All I could think about was putting as much distance between us and that poor lifeless creature as possible. We walked in silence for a while, and even though we distanced ourselves from the mongoose, I could tell the moment was ruined. The adrenaline rush had worn off, and my buzz was gone. Maria was visibly more shaken than I was, and it was clear she wasn't enjoying herself anymore. She said she wanted to stick to our original plan of hiking the whole trail to the other side, but it was obvious she didn't want to be in that forest anymore. I couldn't blame her. As we walked, I couldn't stop racking my brain, trying to figure out what we'd stumbled upon. It didn't make any sense. I wasn't aware of the hunting laws there, but I couldn't imagine hunting in a national forest so close to a pedestrian trail was legal. And yet, that was the only explanation I could think of. Why someone would leave the mongoose's body there to rot was beyond me. Maybe it was a hunter who'd seized the opportunity to have that part of the forest to himself, like we had. I really didn't know. We hiked another mile or so, with me trying to cheer Maria up the whole time, but nothing worked. Eventually, she admitted she wasn't feeling well and wanted to turn back. I didn't argue, though I was dreading having to walk past that spot again, mostly because I wasn't sure how it would affect her. I just wanted her to feel comfortable. We retraced our steps, and I could tell we were getting closer to where the mongoose had been. I told Maria to keep her head down so she wouldn't see it, and she did. I braced myself as we turned the final bend, but when the spot came into view, the mongoose was gone. Someone had moved it. My heart started racing, and I instantly began scanning the nearby trees, terrified that someone was hiding among them. I wasn't prepared for what came next. Instead of seeing a person, I noticed something hanging from one of the trees. It was the mongoose strung up with twine, its paws tied together. A sickly green liquid was dripping from its body, something that hadn't been there before, and it was rotating slowly in the wind. I couldn't help but curse out loud when I saw it, which caused Maria to open her eyes. As soon as she saw it, she let out a blood-curdling scream of pure terror. Before she could freeze up, I grabbed her wrist and told her to run. We took off sprinting down the trail, trying not to trip over each other. I let her go in front of me and kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting someone to be following us. Instead, a deafening scream rang out from somewhere behind us. It was a woman's scream, and it was absolutely terrifying, the kind of scream someone being attacked would make. I felt Maria's body jolt mid-stride, and for a second, I thought she was going to collapse. She let out a panicked sob and tried to push herself even harder, but she was already out of breath. I kept my grip on her wrist, practically dragging her along as she slowed down. We couldn't stop. My own chest was burning, but we had to keep moving. Eventually, Maria could barely run anymore, so we had no choice but to slow down to a fast walk. I turned around completely and started walking backward, keeping my eyes locked on the trail behind us. I was bracing myself for a fight. Something had strung up that mongoose, something had caused it scream, and I was 100% sure we'd see someone charging toward us any second. But nothing ever happened. The trailhead finally came into view, and for a brief moment, I thought we were in the clear. But then I saw someone standing near the barricades, watching us. He was a park worker with his arms crossed, clearly pissed off. As soon as we slipped past the barricades, he started yelling at us about breaking the rules, saying he was kicking us out and banning us for life. But then he got a good look at Maria, who at that point was both sobbing and physically exhausted. I told him everything, leaving out no details. He took it seriously and told us we needed to come with him. We were taken to a small ranger station near the parking lot where a supervisor was waiting. I had to go through the story again, and then again when they called the police. Maria didn't say a word. Eventually, her mother arrived, and we left, still shaken. I never heard anything about what the authorities found or if they even bothered investigating. Maria's family might have heard something, but we broke up the following summer and fell out of contact after that, so I really wouldn't know. I haven't thought about this experience in a long time, but it's still just as unsettling as it was all those years ago. The worst part, I think, was that scream. We never saw anyone else on that trail, and I have no idea who it belonged to. Fast forward to spring break 2023. My friend Michelle and I booked a trip to Miami for the weekend. It was both of our first times in Miami, and we were staying at a full house rental in Wynwood, about 20 minutes from the beach. We got there on Thursday and planned to stay until Monday. The first night, we went out to some nearby bars, which was fun. The next day, we Ubered to Miami Beach for a beach day. We laid out for hours, and multiple groups of guys approached us, but we brushed them off except for one. His name was Will, and he had this charming accent and a seemingly nice personality. He was handsome too. Everything about him was attractive. He asked for my number, and I gave it to him. He didn't seem to be with anyone, and he walked off the beach shortly after. Michelle was a little jealous, but we laughed it off. Later that day, after hitting some bars, we returned to the rental with drinks and snacks. We were drinking by the pool, plotting our night, when I texted Will to see what he was up to. He responded quickly, suggesting we all go out in Wynwood. His friend Ken would join, and we could pregame at our rental. They arrived around 8, and Ken was surprisingly good-looking too. Michelle seemed pleasantly surprised. We drank in the yard for about an hour, and everything seemed normal. Eventually, we walked to a nearby bar in Wynwood. Michelle and I were already drunk, and Ken and we kept buying rounds of shots. Things became a blur pretty quickly. I wouldn't say I blacked out, but my memory got foggy. At one point, Michelle and Ken went to another side of the bar, presumably to hook up, leaving me alone with Will. I went to the bathroom, and before I left, Will asked what I wanted for my next drink. I said a tequila soda. When I came back, I saw Will hovering over the corner of the bar, clearly doing something sketchy. I walked closer to get a better angle and saw him hovering over the drinks. My intuition screamed at me to leave. I walked away without him noticing and tried to find Michelle, but she and Ken were gone. I rushed out of the bar and called her multiple times, but she didn't pick up. Will texted me, asking where I went, but I ignored him. I texted Michelle, telling her I thought Will was trying to roofie me and that we should get away from these guys. I started walking back to the Airbnb. Michelle eventually texted back, saying she was still with Ken and would be back soon. I got back to the rental and locked the door, feeling uneasy. A little while later, the doorknob to the back door jiggled, followed by the sound of the code lock failing. I got a text from Michelle saying to open the back door, but when I called her name through the door, she didn't answer. I checked the peephole and saw Will hiding to the side of the front door. I was terrified. I called 911, and while I was on the phone, Will disappeared. The police arrived quickly, and within minutes, they told me they had Michelle in a squad car. She'd been wandering the streets, lost and drunk after her phone was stolen. All the texts I'd received from her number were actually from Ken. We found her phone thrown in the pool. The police took our statements, and we had to cancel our stay and leave immediately. It was a nightmare. A similar thing happened to my friend Lena and me during our spring break in Charleston. We booked a cheap Airbnb near the historic district and were having a great time until I started getting creepy texts from an unknown number. At first, it was just hey, but then it escalated to look outside and finally, Anna, that's a nice red jacket. I was wearing a red jacket, and I was the only one in the bar wearing red. We freaked out and went back to the Airbnb, locking everything. Later, we ordered Uber Eats, but when the delivery guy knocked on the door, he insisted I come out and sign something. I refused, and he started banging on the door, shouting my name. Lena called 911, and the police arrived just in time to catch him. It turned out he'd been following us since we'd entered a giveaway at a local cafe. He had a criminal record and was likely planning something sinister. The rest of the trip was ruined, and I was just relieved we got out of there safely. Spring break is supposed to be fun, but sometimes it takes a dark turn. Stay safe out there.